Hello, everyone. Welcome to our pre-show of today's SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. Oh, we've got a lot going on. So we're about 10 minutes before we get started. This is the pre-show, and I'm doing my final system checks. We're making sure that streaming is working. We're making sure that I can see that streaming is working. There we go. And I can now see everything on here. Cameras look good. Recordings are going. There they are. Already done the podcast intro. You missed that. It's very exciting. Me reading from a script. You'd think I'd have it memorized at this point, but that's the way I work. Is everything is in a script. Everything is documented. Not everything is in a script. I mean, none of my training classes are scripted. They just turn out to be whatever they are. We script them after the fact. I transcribe them afterwards. Might be able to save some money if I was to write them all out, just talk to a camera, and then we would have the transcript already. Hey, chat room. How's everybody doing? Thanks for being here. If you'd like to check in, we got a lot going on. Let's see if I can pull up the diagram. Macro is on. Get this here. There we go. So where are you joining from? What is this thing? What is this big map? It's a pin map. It's a map you can put a pin in. So where are you joining from? You can simply go to Vevox.app and use the ID 160605388. Or the QR code that's on your screen, or go to professormesser.com/QA. Lots of ways to do this. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking in. There's folks checking in from San Antonio in California, and Nashville, Tennessee, Collegedale, and Georgia, and Michigan, and USA, Texas. Do you have to say USA when you say Texas? Texas is just, yeah, you're in Texas. That is USA. We got Florida. Thanks, Florida, for checking in. Good to have the Florida folks here. Washington, D.C. is here. Nigeria, North Georgia, Maryland. My Maryland has checked in. There's Florida, Massachusetts, Mombasa, Somalia, New York. We got Lafayette, Louisiana, or Lafayette. Depends. In Florida, we have a Lafayette County. But you never know. Of course, I grew up in Jefferson County, named after President Jefferson. The county seat of that county is Monticello, which is not pronounced the same way as Jefferson's home of Monticello. So you just never know. Hello, Malk. Thanks for being here again. We got folks checking in also from India and Holland and Costa Rica and STL, which I'm going to assume is St. Louis, but could be some other places. We got Yersi is here. Jose from South Florida. You in Miami? You in Hialeah? You down in Homestead? What's going on there? South Florida is a big place. There's a lot there. You could be in Davie. You could be in Weston. You could be in, just name all the places in South Florida. There's Peru and Maryland and New York, baby. I'm going to go to New York soon. I'd like to go to New York. I'm going to New York into next month, I think. I've got a trip scheduled in and then cycling back through again. It's one where I land, I do a thing, and I'm out of there. Don't even have much time for fun. I need to fix that. Hello, North Miami Beach. Jose's in North Miami Beach. That's South Florida. That certainly qualifies in North Miami Beach. There on got a lot happening here. North Miami's I used to work North Miami, but not North Miami Beach. I was over near where the Turnpike and the 826 meet. So it was over in that side, but I could take what street was that? 163rd? No, that's way too high, isn't it? It's hard to remember from way back in the day. Thanks for being here, everybody. We have a lot to go through today. Let's see where everybody's sort of checking in from all over the place. We got folks here, folks in the EU. We got India's checking in, folks in Australia. Thanks for being here. But where in Australia? Can I see it? It's hard to see. Hard to see. Yeah, 163rd just rolls right into the Palmetto. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. We were right there on the curve. Well, not on the curve. The curve's where I used to live. So I would be over on 67th Avenue, and then I'd have to drive over the other side. I have worked next to the Miami airport. I worked in downtown Hollywood, Florida. I'm not making this up. That's where the offices were anyway. I worked in, where else in South Florida? And then I sort of got a systems engineering, and South Florida was part of my territory. So I would just work out of my car. I didn't have an office. My office was at home. So I would go up, all of South Florida, up to Jupiter or so, all the way down. Once you get past Jupiter, there's not many large companies. So, Jupiter and down is where I would focus. And then there were other places in the South they would send me. At one point, my territory was South Florida and South Carolina. That was my territory. So everything in the middle of Florida and northern Florida, not mine. Georgia, not mine. I had to go all the way up to South Carolina. So it was just one of these weird, quirky things. That was only for a short period of time, but it was weird to travel. You'd work a little bit in South Florida, and then you get on a plane and go to South Carolina. I guess they picked me because I spoke the language, because I grew up in North Florida. How y'all doing? And so I could talk South Carolina. So, well, it's one of those things. Jupiter does have, I should say the business that's in Jupiter is FPL. There you go. But it's a big FPL facility. So Florida Power and Light has offices there. So I would have to go up there. That was really the very few times I would go up to Jupiter. Most of the time it was Boca, a little bit of West Palm, but pretty much everything was Dade and Broward. See, I still call it Dade. That's how it works. Could I post that Vevox code again? I sure could. There you go. 160-605-388. Didn't even say it right. 160-605-388. That's the session ID at vevox.app. So now you've got everything you need. And of course, it'll be up there for the duration of the show. Do not worry. I will make sure you have access to all of those. We got about 3 minutes until we get started. You see the clock here is telling me that I need to stop talking so much and really make sure that I've got everything I have on here correct. I guess I could type it in. Vevox.app, and the ID is 160. Having a difficult time with the typing part today. 605-388. So there we go. And Alex in the chat room with a $20 super chat. Thanks, Alex. Alex says, I passed my Security Plus exam a couple of weeks ago on my first try. Thanks to your content. Thanks so much for everything you do. Alex, you did the hard part, as I like to say. Congratulations on your Security Plus. What great news. And thank you so much for everybody here. Thanks you for your support of what we do here. So it is very much appreciated. Thank you. Narendra says, I passed my Security Plus. Thanks for your materials, notes, exam questions, free videos, study group, videos for all the objectives line by line. Absolutely. That's the way we do it. We get high quality and put it all there. Lots of folks checking in. Thanks for being here. We got a minute and a half, 1 minute and 1/2 to go. We'll get things started. Because of that, let's see if I can make sure that I have everything I need. I think I do. We're going to put that there. Don't have my head in there, right? Lower third is going to go away because I'll forget if I don't do that. We'll figure out all the details. Ooh, we got plenty to go through today. It's all Security Plus today, so we will make sure we get everything done. Let's prep and get graphics up. Those look pretty good. I think we're in pretty good shape. We'll make sure we got a minute. I think I've got it all ready to go. Thanks for being here, everyone. We'll get started in just a moment, and I have all new questions, so let's see how we do on today's study group. This is going to be great. We always have a good time on this, though. Let's see if I can make this a little bit dimmer. Dimmer. There it is. And let's slide it down just a tad. There is no tad. Okay, there we go. Ooh. All right. With that, let's get this ready to go. That should be Keynote. I need to hit the big green button. That works. That works. That's up. This looks good. I think we're in pretty good shape. I think we're in super good shape. Let's see what else we have. Everything else looks pretty good. I think at this point, really need to put up the other piece of this, but I think it's top of the hour, so it's time to get this thing started, everyone. There's my notification, and let's start the study group. And then look, I got my head in there. That's not what I wanted. That's completely unnecessary. There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2023 Professor Messer SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, we are broadcasting live, and we have questions that I've created that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And you, if you're watching this live, will get to participate in real time and answer some of the questions that we have. There's quite a bit that we're going to go through today. I want to be sure that if you are here live, that you're able to answer the questions. And one of the best ways to do that is right here. You can follow along with me by opening up a new browser window and browsing over to professormesser.com/QA. That will get you to the questions, so you'll be able to answer those. We've also got quite a bit in the way of apps that you can use. Vevox is the service that we use to make these questions appear on the screen so that you can interactively vote on these. You would go to your favorite app store and download the Vevox app. And today there will be a session ID. You'll see this ID number up again. The session ID is 160-605-388. Now, if you are not watching this live, that's okay. We've got plenty of things for you to be able to work on. Just follow along with what we're doing, and you'll know exactly where we're going with this. Now, the rules that we have, or the standing rule for the live stream, is no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. Instead, we're going to answer questions interactively using the Vevox app or the Vevox front end in your browser. The question that I have, this is actually a question from last month. It's the one question you're going to get that's a repeat, because I like to make sure that everybody's able to get into Vevox. You're able to answer these questions. And this question asks, which of the following would be the best way to send data to a specific remote port? Would that be Netcat, Route, grep, dig, or tail? It's going to be one of those. So I would like you to associate or plug in what you think the correct answer is. We're going to come back to this question in just a bit, so mull that over and let's see how you do with answering that question. Well, thanks for joining us. We do one of these Security Plus study groups every month, thanks to your support and your ongoing support, even when we're not here doing live streams. Of course, we have Security Plus videos. Our entire course is available on YouTube. You can go to professormesser.com/YouTube. And of course, right now, there's even new Security Plus content coming at the end of the year. You may want to subscribe just to make sure you have access to those. Also, we have a weekly Security Plus pop quiz question. That question is available on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. There's also a version that has a pretty picture with it at professormesser.com/Instagram. So there are places you can go to catch us on the internet. We'll talk about those in just a moment. Now, of course, the current version of the Security Plus exam is the SY0-601. This was released in November of 2020. And you're thinking, well, that's quite a long time ago. It certainly is. And in fact, this version of the exam will eventually be phased out in just under a year. So you've got about 11 months to work on your Security Plus, which is plenty of time, by the way. So this is expected to retire somewhere around July of 2024. We don't know the exact date yet because CompTIA has not provided us with that, but based on the way that they've done things in the past, that's probably a pretty good guess. The Security Plus exam consists of a single exam. You don't have to take multiple tests to be able to earn your Security Plus certification. You have 90 minutes to take what is a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than 90 questions, but there is a maximum, and that is what they could ask you in that 90-minute time frame. What you're hoping to get is a score of 750 on the scale of 100 through 900. I know it's a little bit weird in the way that they do their grading. I think that's by design. I think they would like it to be something that would be very difficult for someone else to duplicate, and they've accomplished that. There's no way to really know how they grade the exam. The only thing we know is that if you get a question right, you earn points. You earn a random number of points. Each question is worth a different number of points. I guess it's not random. It's really a number that they mathematically assign to that particular question. The questions themselves will be multiple choice. You've already seen an example of one of those already. And they're also performance-based questions, and we'll talk more about performance-based questions in just a bit. There was a question in the chat room before we got started about the newest version of Security Plus. And it isn't really a version yet. The version to come eventually with the Security Plus is the SY0-601. That's the version number of the exam that will be introduced on November the 7th of this year. So you've still got a number of months before even that version appears. And even then, you may not want to take that exam. I'll talk about that in just a moment. The SY0-601, however, is still sticking around until July of next year. So just because they're introducing a new exam version doesn't mean the old one goes away. They give you plenty of time. If you've been working all this time on your 601, can you imagine suddenly the exam changes? That would be awful. So they give you a nice 6-month overlap between the time a new version is introduced and the old version is retired. And again, this is exactly the same format as the 601. It's a single exam, 90 minutes long, maximum of 90 questions. You still have to earn a 750, and the scale is still 100 to 900. So nothing changes with the mechanics of how all of this works. It's exactly the same process to take the exam, but of course the exam objectives are quite different between both of these versions. So I always mention that if you are thinking of trying to perhaps wait and take the newer version of the exam, I'll tell you that that may not be your best idea. And in fact, you probably never, as a general rule, want to wait to earn an industry certification. That certification is a valuable piece of paper. It's a valuable item that you can put on your resume next to your name and tell everyone, I am Security Plus certified. And if you're waiting until November, then everyone else who is working to earn their certification is going to have their cert and you're not. So there is a competitive part to this, especially if you're using these certifications to get a job or get a better job. Having that certification in your pocket is so much more valuable than sitting around without the cert. So I will tell you that it's probably not a good idea to wait. Now, at some point, of course, you probably will want to take the exam. And a lot of people are saying, I'm going to wait until November and then I'm going to start studying. But what you're going to find is that there will be a limited number of study materials available on launch day. It takes quite a bit of time for companies to create, produce, print, distribute books and other training materials. Now, we tend to have all of our study materials available on day one. But if you're looking for a book from someone else, or you're looking for a set of labs from another company, you may find those aren't available until weeks or even months after an exam is introduced. So don't think that you're going to show up on November 7th and be able to purchase the same breadth of products that you currently have available for the 601, because you certainly will not. So that's why I tell people, do not wait, because you could wait, get all the way up to November 7th, and then realize, I really don't have much to study from. I think the Security Plus is one that there will be quite a few items available for Security Plus. So it may not be as horrible as you might think, but there are still limitations, and you'll have to wait for all of those Security Plus materials to be introduced over the coming months, certainly into 2024. You will see Security Plus items suddenly appearing on the market. This 601 is going to be around until July. So why don't you take the current version, get the certification in your pocket, and then you're in good shape. You don't even have to worry about the 701 because you're certified for 3 years as soon as you become certified with your 601. So in fact, if you started today and you were very aggressive with your training, you could earn your 601 Security Plus, take the 601 exam and earn your Security Plus before the 701 is even out. So we're still a little bit early for this. And if I think what we should do is wait until we get a little bit closer to the time frame for release, especially in November, then we can all look at the state of the market, see what's available out there, and then make decisions on whether that's something we should do. So I've gotten a lot of emails and a lot of messages about this. So I thought I would bring that up so that you could maybe decide in your mind whether waiting is better or perhaps taking exams now are better. And it may depend on your personal circumstances, how much time you have to study, and there might be good reasons. You might look at both sets of exam objectives, which are available on the CompTIA website right now. You might put them side by side and think, well, I like the 601 objectives better. Or you might look at it and say, I like the 701 objectives better, and you might make your decision that way. There's a number of different things. But just remember, without the cert, you're now at a disadvantage. That's the real emphasis. And if you take anything away from that, that's the story. Of course, on our website, we currently have 601 materials. And when the 701 comes out, the 701 materials will be available on our website as well. Do not worry. People are sending me messages already saying, will you have 701 videos? Oh, absolutely. We're shooting them right now. Will you have course notes? Yep. Practice exams? Yes. We have other things that I haven't even released before, but maybe yes for Security Plus. Yes, we will have all kinds of new things that are coming out. But right now, if you're studying for your 601, which is a great idea, we have plenty of study materials available for you on the website. Make sure you check out our Success Bundle. It is at professormesser.com/601SB. Also let you know that this live stream is available for replay immediately afterwards on YouTube, but we do have a podcast audio only version that we distribute. If you'd like to join that, connect that particular podcast feed to your podcast listening program, you can do that at professormesser.com/podcast. Also let you know that about a day after we're done, you will see that the Security Plus Study Group video description on YouTube will suddenly be populated with timestamps. And this doesn't happen automatically. Google and YouTube are trying to make these things happen automatically. Doesn't work very well. You need someone who is dedicated, someone who is knowledgeable, and someone who's willing to sit through me talking for 2 hours. That would be Lori, my marketing manager. Hi, Lori. She does not get hazard pay for that. She has to listen to the whole thing and put in the timestamps. Thank you for doing that, Lori, and everybody in the chat room. If you're using those, make sure you thank Lori in the chat as well. She watches the chat as she's streaming by at 2x speed. So that's another thing that's really, really useful. Have a look at those. It's usually on there about a day after we have these live streams. And of course, when we're not doing a live stream, we're over in our chat rooms and our study rooms on Discord. Go to professormesser.com/Discord and you can join our community. It's a great group of people there. There are people constantly opening up channels that they can use to help train, to go through videos together, to talk about topics from the exams. It's all on our Discord. You should sign up. Go to professormesser.com/Discord. I'll also let you know that eventually you will need to take this exam. You can't get away from it. You have to take the exam. And you could certainly go to the CompTIA website and pay full price to take your exam. But why would you do that? If you're in the US or Canada, I have discounted vouchers already available on my site for the same exam, but you don't have to pay as much. You can save a little bit of money by visiting professormesser.com/vouchers and purchase your voucher from our site. Also let you know that if you are nice enough to come to our site and buy those discounted vouchers, I'll even give you a little bit extra. It's a copy of my Exam Hacks ebook, something you cannot buy from my site. It is only available for people that purchase my success bundles or for people that purchase vouchers, and something that's just included for free. It's a list of tips and tricks and things that I've accumulated through the years that have helped me on my exams. And there's even some tips in here that can help you during the exam, perhaps earn a few extra points. Sometimes those extra points is all it really takes to get you over the top. Find out more about those at professormesser.com/vouchers. So that at least gets you to some place working through here. Hopefully you're familiar with those. Let's go back to that question we asked earlier. The question was, which of the following would be the best way to send data to a specific remote port? Well, we've got a few options here: Netcat, Route, grep, dig, and tail. And literally everyone has voted on this one. So let's see how people did. We're going to close the poll and have a look at the results. And you can see that we have 54% of you say the answer is Netcat. We have 34% say the answer is Route. And then we have single digits, 5% say dig, 4% say grep, and 2% say tail. In this case, we're trying to literally send data to a port number that is on a remote device. So we want to send information across the network and have it somehow communicate to a specific IP address and a specific port number on that IP address. And from the list we have here, the only one of these that does this for us is indeed Netcat. Netcat allows us to read or write information to the network. You can specify which port you'd like to connect to, which IP address, and it sends that information on the way. So we've at least got a number of things that we can do with Netcat. It's a very useful utility. You should be familiar with it if you're really doing anything with security. Sometimes you can do this also with Telnet. That's probably the only time Telnet would really be useful, is if you're trying to send data to a port that is not encrypted. But Netcat is much more efficient at doing this, and probably a utility that you should have on your system today. Netcat, incredibly useful. They've got different versions of Netcat for Windows, for Mac OS. You can find NCAT to be able to do that. So you've got lots of options, and I think that's a great way to send data to another device. In fact, 54% of you think it's a great way to do it as well. We've got 34% that said route. Route is a great utility, and it can show you a listing of all of the route tables that are on your computer. You can even remove or add static routes if you would like. The route utility, though, does not send data to a port number on a remote device. That's not what it does. It tells us where we will be sending data. Doesn't really specify a port, because the route command or the routing tables are really referring to IP addresses and IP address ranges and subnets, but it does at least give you an idea of where the next step will be in the path of what you may be sending out over the network. But it doesn't itself send any data, and the route command doesn't send data to a specific port. So that would not be the right answer. And then, of course, grep is used to search through files. Dig is a utility that allows you to query a name server. And tail is a utility that shows you the last lines of a particular file. Very useful for looking at the last section of a log file, for example. But none of those send any data to a specific port on a remote device. What we were hoping to find is the answer being Netcat. That is the best answer that we have here. And if you answered that one, 54% of you did. You got that one absolutely right. Well done. Well, that at least gives us an idea of what we might run into when we are working through these challenging problems. And I think this is a good time to shift gears just a little bit and be able to have a look at what a performance-based question might be. If you've never taken a CompTIA exam, you need to know about performance-based questions. The first handful of questions on your exam will not be multiple choice. So this was a multiple choice-based question where there was a question and then multiple choices to select from. But on your actual exam, although most of the exam will be multiple choice questions, there will be this first group of questions at the very beginning of your exam that are not multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be putting you at a command prompt and asking you to perform a function. They might be drag and drop. They might be matching. You might have to put things in a particular order. The good part is that they're not incredibly complex questions, and the topics in the questions are coming directly from the exam objectives. I just think of it as a different way to ask you information that you already know because you've studied the exam objectives. That's what I think is a great place to go. So what I have for you is a set of questions that are performance-based questions. This is a question that I have for you today that is a matching question. This matching question asks, match the secure protocol to the traffic flow. Not all of these traffic flows will have a match. So I have for you 4 different protocols, and I have 7 different descriptions or definitions of what those particular types of protocols might be. So what we'll do, and I'm going to change this so you can answer the question on here, I promise. We're going to open this poll up so that you can answer this question. And there is the list. So for those of you listening in on the podcast side, let's go through all 4 of these secure protocols. They are IPsec, FTPS, NTPSec, and SSH. Those are 4 protocols that are listed in your CompTIA exam objectives. And now I have 7 different traffic flow descriptions. Let's see how you would match these up. Traffic flow A is encrypt all data sent to a remote terminal console. B is encrypt all VoIP phone call audio. C is gather performance metrics from switches and routers. D is send files from a user's workstation to a server. E is automatically set the time and date on a laptop. If you select F, it's connect 2 sites using an encrypted tunnel. And the last one is securely authenticate users to a network resource. Now, what I'm hoping you'll be able to do is match IPsec, FTPS, NTPsec, and SSH into 4 of these. So there's going to be 3 left over when we're done. And for, like I say, extra credit, maybe you can tell me of the 3 left over, what is the secure protocol that you would use for that particular function? So there is a little bit of fill in the blank here if we want to do it that way. Have a look at that. See if you can answer the question. Go to your Vevox.app and you can lock in the answer right there. So you've got a few things that you can pull from there. We're looking for IPsec, FTPS, NTPsec, and SSH. And I'm asking you which one encrypts all data sent to a remote terminal console, encrypts all VoIP phone call audio, gather performance metrics from switches and routers, send files from a user's workstation to a server, automatically set the time and date on a laptop, connect 2 sites using an encrypted tunnel, and securely authenticate users to a network resource. Now, if you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA or use the Vevox app information that's on your screen to be able to answer this question. Maybe that can help you with the things you are looking for. If you think they're already in the right order, you can just type in 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, and you're done. It is not 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. However, there is a little bit of work that I'm going to have you do on this one. And one of the things you'll notice is that you might get one or more of these incorrect. You could have some of these might be answered properly and some of these might not be answered properly. And one of the questions that tends to come up is people ask, well, do you get partial credit? CompTIA has a frequently asked questions on their website, and they say, maybe. Sometimes we will give you partial credit. Sometimes we will not give you partial credit. Good luck with your exam. That's pretty much what they say. So I think that in that particular case, I think that really is an important consideration, that you never know whether you're going to get partial credit or not. I tend to go into this thinking, let's pretend that we're not going to get partial credit with these. And if you do that, I think you'll be in pretty good shape. As always, you input your answer using the Vevox app information that's on the screen. You can also go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. And if you, maybe I'll just bring it over so we see this one. And if you are thinking about what the answers might be, remember, we want to answer in Vevox. Please don't answer in the web, in the chat that's on the website or on YouTube. No answers in the chat. Please, no hints in the chat. We'll figure out the details. We will get there. A lot of you are plugging in your answers now. Let's step through each one of these and see if we can determine what we think the answer might be. So we're going to step through all 4 of those and know the answer is IPsec, FTPS, NTPsec, and SSH. So if we were to look through this list, we want to know which of these answers would apply to IPsec. So if we go through all the list, we would match F, where we might connect 2 sites using an encrypted tunnel. This is probably the most commonly used use case for IPsec, is that particular piece, is connect 2 sites using an encrypted tunnel. IPsec, interestingly, could connect 2 sites and not encrypt the data. That is possible, but then why would you be using IPsec? Almost always, we are using IPsec to provide that encrypted tunnel. So if you answered F on that one, you're absolutely right. FTPS is File Transfer Protocol Secure, which means if you are sending files from a user's workstation to a server, you're doing a file transfer, and that would be a perfect use for a protocol such as FTPS, sending files from a user's workstation to a server. Of course, there are many protocols that could be used for this, so especially secure protocols. SMB technically is secure. at least the most modern versions of them. So SMB could be put here. SFTP could be put here. So you've got a number of different options, but in our list, that's the only two you could match together, would be FTPS with answer D, send files from a user's workstation to a server. And the third on our list was NTPSec. That is the Network Time Protocol. This is the protocol that can automatically set the time and date on your systems so that you don't have to set it yourself. You ever notice when you start your computer up that it seems to always know what the right date and time happens to be, down to the second? It matches on your phone with your computer. Everything is synced up, and it's able to do that thanks to the Network Time Protocol. And the secure version of the Network Time Protocol is NTPSec. And lastly, we have SSH. SSH stands for Secure Shell. It allows us to encrypt all data across the network to another device and work on a remote console on that device. So instead of sending information in the clear like you would with Telnet, you can use an encrypted protocol like SSH, and now you are ensured that everything going across the network is indeed encrypted. It is protected. It is secure. So always use SSH when you're using that console. You may run into situations in your career, though, where you're connecting to a very old device. It doesn't support SSH. You really don't have an example of where that would fit when you're in that situation. So Telnet's commonly not used. We would use SSH. I think that's a good one to always have loaded up on your machine and ready to go. Well, that means that 3 of these were left over. We left over answer B, encrypt all VoIP phone call audio. We also had gather performance metrics from switches and routers. And the last one is securely authenticate users to a network resource. We didn't choose those. So the question I have, though, is what would be the secure protocol that you would fit into those particular situations? So encrypting all VoIP phone call audio is something that you might do with SRTP. The real-time protocol is the protocol that is used to send primarily audio, but it could also send video over voice over IP systems. One of the things you can do is enable a secure version of RTP called SRTP or Secure RTP. So that's a perfect example of how you might encrypt all VoIP phone call audio. The next one is gather performance metrics from switches and routers. Well, if you're gathering metrics, you're probably using SNMP. But SNMP by itself doesn't tell you if it's secure or not. There's a secure version of SNMP. It is SNMP version 3 or V3. So if you want to be specific and correct in this example, you would say that the answer would be SNMP V3. That V3 is so important when you're talking about the secure version of SNMP. And lastly, we have securely authenticate users to a network resource. There are lots of ways to do this. The one that I put in was LDAP-S, but there are other ways to perform the same functionality. Kerberos would be another good example of this. And there are secure versions of Radius and of TACACS, which are kind of covers the 4 most common ways that people might authenticate a device. So if you put any of those in there, I'll accept that as a correct answer. You get extra credit on that one. It's hard not to give you credit for those. The answers, again, IPsec is used to connect 2 sites using an encrypted tunnel. FTPS sends files from a user's workstation to a server. NTPsec automatically sets the time and date on a laptop. SSH encrypts all data sent to a remote terminal console. SRTP encrypts all voice over IP call audio. SNMP v3 gathers performance metrics from switches and routers. And LDAP-S securely authenticates users to a network resource. Well, that is our performance-based question of the month. Maybe you got that one right. Maybe you got some of these wrong. All of these secure protocols are listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. If you didn't recognize any of them, or it's a protocol maybe you don't run into very often, make sure you check the specifics, do a little more research, and watch our video on working with these types of protocols. Maybe that can help you as you step through your studies and trying to figure out the best way to memorize these very secure protocols, the preferably secure protocols. Hopefully you're using those rather than the insecure versions. Let's now shift gears to a multiple choice based question. This next question I have for you is one that asks, A security administrator would like to block users from visiting known malicious internet locations. Which of the following would provide this security? Would it be, let's see if we can show you this. Would it be honeypot, DNS sinkhole, DLP, fake telemetry, or embedded system? These are all real things. Some of these sound like I made them up. I did not make them up. They are real things. So the question again asks, a security administrator would like to block users from visiting known malicious internet locations. Which of the following would provide this security? Is it honeypot, DNS sinkhole, DLP, fake telemetry, or embedded system? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. As always, please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. Use the links on your screen to lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what this is. This comes up quite often in sort of practical terms. Whenever you're in a security department with an organization, this is something you would really like to happen. You would like to block users from visiting known malicious internet locations. Well, how do you do that? There's lots of ways to do it. And if you think you know the answer, lock it in there. Go to professormesser.com/QA or lock it in there at the Vevox.app with the ID 160-605-388. Got a few there to work through. Hopefully, you're familiar with these. As I mentioned, all of these are from the exam objectives. They all are used for different security functions, but which one would really answer the question that we're hoping to find? How would we solve this particular problem? Maybe this is something that you're doing today. For those of you that are already working in the industry, it becomes very useful. Let's see how you did with this one. Again, the question asks, a security administrator would like to block users from visiting known malicious internet locations. Which of the following would provide this security? Would it be honeypot, DNS sinkhole, DLP, fake telemetry, or embedded system? And we're going to close the poll and see how you did. 72% of you say DNS sinkhole. That's a pretty strong number. We also have 13% that say DLP. We've got 10% that say embedded system. 4% say honeypot. And 0% say fake telemetry. Oh, aren't you going to be surprised when I pull up this slide and it says, you're not surprised at all, it says DNS sinkhole. So of course it's DNS sinkhole. This is how we can configure. Usually it's if you've got an old system, maybe it's a proxy that you're configuring. If you have anywhere close to being a modern system, you're probably doing this on your firewall, where you can change a DNS response that is different than what the DNS is actually saying. So, and we do that because your firewall or your security device already has a list of all of these malicious sites. It's a list that is constantly evolving and changing as things go along during the day. It's constantly updated because malicious sites new ones are found all the time. So we keep updating this list. If anyone in your organization tries to send information out, it's going to perform a DNS query for that particular device. And when we see someone trying to query and receive an IP address for a known malicious site, we don't want to give them that IP address. That would be a really bad idea. Then they would be able to talk to the malicious site, and eventually they would probably be infected. So one of the things that we can do is tell our firewall, let's now take anybody who requests a DNS query for a known malicious site, and let's send them an IP address that really doesn't go anywhere. That's where you get the sinkhole part of this. We just send them down the sinkhole. So their query does return an IP address, but the IP address does not take them to the known malicious site. Nifty, isn't it? What's also nifty is that we can now do reporting on this. And if we have a report that tells us this person made a query to this known malicious site and they were DNS sinkholed, then we can get a list of everyone who potentially might have some type of either bad link on their system, they might have gotten some type of phishing or spam, or they might have malicious software on their computer, and this has blocked it from getting even more malicious. So this does provide us with a great deal of flexibility from a security administrator's perspective, something that can help you not just in real time block someone from going to a site, but then at the end of the day, you've got this list of everybody who happened to go through that. And that's really the important part of this. As I mentioned, these days, we often see this functionality in the firewall because generally, if you're communicating out across the network, you're talking through the firewall to make that happen, which makes the firewall such an important part of stopping malicious traffic. And there's a good example of how you can do that. Pretty nice to have a DNS sinkhole there working for you to make that happen. We have a number of different options on here, too, that we did not choose. 13% of us say DLP, that's data loss prevention. That would block someone from sending out sensitive information from their machine. Maybe they're sending out credit card numbers. They're sending a document that has social security numbers across the internet. We can block that either by using a separate DLP, data loss prevention device, separate software. And again, this may be built into the firewall that you're using. This is DLP, and 13% of you chose that one, but that doesn't block anyone from visiting known malicious internet locations. It simply stops somebody from sending out sensitive information. We have 10% say an embedded system. An embedded system describes a system that is one that we generally don't have direct access to. It's running an operating system, but we can't get into the operating system. For example, if you are going into work and you have to badge in at the beginning of the day and badge out on a time clock. The time clock is running an embedded operating system. If you have an electronic air control where you can set the temperature electronically and you connect to it across the cloud, that probably has its own operating system running inside of it, but you don't have access to that. It's an embedded system. There are hundreds and thousands of embedded system examples you could pull from, but an embedded system doesn't block users from visiting a known malicious internet location, at least not by itself. You would have to have an embedded system with firewall software on it, I guess, to be able to do that. So, but that's not what this said. It just said embedded system, which is probably not the best answer given the other ones that are here. We also have honeypot. 4% of you say honeypot. Honeypot is a way to attract the attackers into what effectively is a fake system or series of systems, and then have that attacker try to use their hacking techniques to gain access to this fake system, which allows us to sort of peek in to see what they're doing. We can gather a lot of interesting details. And of course, while they're doing that, they're not attacking our real systems. But honeypot does not block users from visiting known malicious sites. And then lastly, fake telemetry, which is commonly used with AI-type systems, where we would tell the AI something that is patently false. The AI now starts to believe it, and now the answers the AI is giving are incorrect. This is a common problem with this level of intelligence, is that you could tell it that 2 + 2 is 5, and it goes, oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, 2 + 2 is 5. What was I thinking? You've now sent it some fake telemetry. That doesn't block anyone from visiting no malicious internet locations either. The answer, DNS sinkhole, 72% of you got that one spot on. That one was an easy one for you, 72% of you. The rest of you, though, you learned maybe a good idea of how a DNS sinkhole might work for you. Maybe that's something you can use in the future. Never know. Let's do another question, shall we? I've got another one for you. This one asks, a user needs to digitally sign a document before sending it to a third party. Which of the following will be used to create this digital signature? Is it the sender's public key, the recipient's private key, the recipient's public key, a Diffie-Hellman symmetric key, or the sender's private key? There's a lot of keys in this one. We really have to read this one carefully. Let's do it again. A user needs to digitally sign a document before sending it to a third party. Which of the following will be used to create this digital signature? Would it be a sender's public key, a recipient's private key, a recipient's public key, a Diffie-Hellman symmetric key, or the sender's private key? Sounds like I said one of those twice, but I didn't. They are all different things. Make sure you plug those in. If you think you know the answer, no answers in the chat room, please. We want to go to professormesser.com/QA or use the links to Vevox that's on your screen to lock in your answer. A lot of people answering this one quick. So I'm wondering, did we get it right? Did we Did we go through this process? Let's see if we did. A lot of you think, spot on which one this is. I hope you do. This is an important aspect of PKI, public key infrastructure, or just public key cryptography in general. So make sure you're very familiar with the ideas of public keys, private keys, and when you would use them and how you would use them, because those will certainly appear somewhere on your exam. I feel certain they will. Since so many people are answering this one, let's just jump right into it and see how you did. The question again asked, a user needs to digitally sign a document before sending it to a third party. Which of the following will be used to create this digital signature? Is it a sender's public key, a recipient's private key, a recipient's public key, a Diffie-Hellman symmetric key, or the sender's private key? Let's see how we did with this one. I'm going to close the poll. And let's look at the answers. We have 54% of us that said it is the sender's private key, but 16% of you say it's the sender's public key. We also have 14% that say the recipient's public key, and then down to single digits, 8% said recipient's private key, and only 6.5% or so say Diffie-Hellman symmetric key. So if we go with the majority here, just over the majority value at 54%, we would go with the sender's private key. Digital signatures are incredibly important for ensuring integrity. They will allow you to ensure that the document that you've received or the information you've received is the same that is being used or that was sent to you originally. So you know what you received really is what was sent. Nobody changed it somewhere along the way. It also proves who sent it, which is also really good. We happen to know if we receive something that has been digitally signed, we know this really came from that person. And there's even a wider scope to that, because not only can we confirm that that person really sent it, anyone can confirm that that person really sent it. We refer to that as non-repudiation. The person who sent it could not possibly repudiate or deny that they happen to send that document, because we have their digital signature, and the only person who could have created that digital signature is the person who sent that particular document. To be able to create a digital signature, we sign it with a key that nobody else can have. That's how we're able to get that non-repudiation. That's how we can point back to that and say, you have to be the only person who sent this, because you're the only person who has your private key. And if I sign it with my private key and send it out to the world, everyone knows it must have come from me, because I'm the only one who keeps my private key. That's the beauty part of this. And that, of course, is the important part of this particular question, is when you're ready to send this and you're creating that digital signature, which one of your keys is this going to use? In reality, if you've ever done this, you just click a checkbox and say, include a digital signature at the bottom. And the system doesn't ask you, well, would you like to use your private key? Would you like to use some other key? Of course, they're not going to ask you. They just do all of this behind the scenes. All you really did was click a checkbox or select that you want a digital signature. But behind the scenes, indeed, that's exactly what's happening. On the other side, whatever you're using to validate this will look at that digital signature and validate it against the public key of the sender. There is that mathematical relationship, of course, between the public key and the private key. So if I can sign it with my private key, I can keep that key to myself, but anybody else in the world has access to my public key. They can, of course, validate it using my public key. It's like magic. It doesn't seem like that should work, but it works amazingly. And in fact, it's the functional encryption we use all day, every day on the internet. If we did not have this public private key cryptography, how would the internet even work? It's remarkable that we have all of this available. So there's where the public key would come from. That is the private keys used to sign it. The public key is used to validate it. And in fact, that's what you thought as well, or at least 54% of you thought that. If you are creating a digital signature, it uses your private key when you are creating it. If I had asked what is used to validate this digital signature, you would have said it is the sender's public key is used to validate it. But that wasn't the question. It was used to create it, and to create it, we use our private key because nobody else has access to a private key. The only thing here that's not a public or private key is the symmetric key. And I even mentioned specifically the Diffie-Hellman algorithm, because the Diffie-Hellman algorithm allows you to create the same symmetric key on both sides of a conversation without actually sending that key across the network. How does that work? Oh, it's even more crazy. This idea of having public and private keys can allow us to create symmetric keys on both sides without comparing each side and making sure that we have the right one. It's just done automatically using Diffie-Hellman. I have also videos on this that you should check out. It's remarkable in how all of this works, and something you should consider as well. Well, that is you did pretty well on that one. You did a great job on that one, because 54% of you said sender's private key. That is exactly what you would use. Hopefully that's gotten you a little bit more familiar with public or private key. And if you don't think any of this made any sense, make sure you check out my video associated with this. It's right here at the bottom. 2.8 hashing and digital signatures is the one you're looking for. That can at least give you an idea of where you can find more information on hashes, digital signatures, and how they relate to public keys and private keys. Well, already we've gone through quite a lot of content. We've got more questions to come. Stick around for those. Don't worry. We have plenty more questions to go through. But I did want to remind you that if you're looking at the Security Plus exam, it's a monster of an exam. It's a big exam. And there are topics that span everything from network design and cloud computing to encryption protocols, risk management, mobile security, and many, many, many other topics. Well, if you've looked at my course, you know it's 177 videos. It's big because Security Plus is a large course. Over 21 hours of information. And although I recommend you go through every single video, sometimes we just don't have the time. We just don't have the capabilities, and there's only so many hours in the day. So what I've done is I go through every video and I create a series of notes called my course notes. These course notes are available in PDF form. There are also physical editions of the notes available. They are identical to each other. One's just a printed copy made from dead trees. That's the only big difference on this one. But having something that's physical for many people is a great way to study. I think there's something tactile about it. In fact, I just flipped over to the cryptography section for, is that digital signatures? How did I do that? Sure did. That's the digital signature section. Shows you graphically how the digital signature is created and how it is verified. It's all in here. The PDF is identical to this. With all of these pages, documents, you've got all of the text from every video. You've got the important graphics that are in every video, and you've got information in charts that I create that I put into these notes. These are probably some of the most comprehensive Security Plus notes you're going to find anywhere. And they're available on my website. You can purchase and download them immediately at professormesser.com/601cn. There's other things there like practice exams and other things you can choose from as well. In fact, if you buy them with the practice exams, you get a little bit of a discount when you combo things together. Just another thing to look at on the Professor Messer website, and a great way to summarize everything into one place. This doesn't replace watching the videos. It doesn't replace reading a book or getting hands-on or Q&A, but it is a great way to summarize everything from my videos, which of course are designed specifically to the CompTIA exam objectives. Find out more about those at professormesser.com/601cn. Let's do another question. I've got one here. Let's go to the next one on our list. It asks, an application developer has embedded a certificate into a mobile app. Which of the following would best describe the app's use of this certificate? Would it be pinning, hashing, self-signed, escrow, or stapling? Got a few options here. An application developer has embedded a certificate into a mobile app. Which of the following best describes the app's use of this certificate? Is it pinning, hashing, self-signed, escrow, or stapling? If you think you know the answer, follow the links on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer, or go to vevox.app and you can use the ID that is on your screen. Let's see how you do with this one. This is a good question because it's something you will run into often. with application developers and how they build their applications. And so it's important to know what's happening behind the scenes so that you can then put in the appropriate security controls for this. We'll talk more about that when we get to the answers. I don't want to give too much of this away, but you can lock in. A lot of people locking in their answer on this one too. I wonder how we did with this one. I talk about developers like they're some other entity. Well, in the world of IT, they are another entity. IT, information technology, is not really developing. We don't build applications in IT. The computer science side, they build applications. So that's why I often mention that. We're often handed the application and said, you now get to support this. So when that happens, it's usually useful to know what's going on with that. Maybe it's something that can help you too. See if you're familiar with this answer. A lot of people have locked in their answer, so let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, an application developer has embedded a certificate into a mobile app. I'm looking at you, Twitter, now X. Which of the following would best describe the app's use of this certificate? Is it pinning, hashing, self-signed, escrow, or stapling? We're going to close the poll, see how you do. And we're a little torn on this one. We have 42% say that is self-signed. 28% of you say that is pinning. 14, almost 15% say it's stapling. And then we have 10% that say hashing. So 4 of our answers were double-digit answers. And then we got 4% that say escrow. Almost nobody said escrow on this one. So if we go with the majority of you, well, not majority because it's 43% of you, the plurality of you say the answer is self-signed is what we were looking for, when in reality, the answer we were looking for was pinning. That is the developer who's putting a certificate into the app itself. This is because they want the app to do validation that it's talking to the proper server. So I think that's pretty important when you start breaking these things down, that you're talking to the right device. So what they do is they pin or embed a certificate within the application itself. That way, when you distribute the application, it's already got the cert inside of it. And you know, as the application runs, that you can validate that cert as it's going out. It's one of those that can really help you if you're trying to get an application to work properly. Maybe you don't want a proxy to be in the middle. Maybe you're concerned about someone doing a man in the middle and replacing the certificate. Well, if the certificate's in your app, there's no replacing it. It's built into the application, and you can validate when it goes out. And if you get a different certificate back in return, that happens a lot. If somebody's doing SSL decryption, for example, the stapling is not going to work very well in any of those cases. So hopefully that gives you a perspective into what these types of things might be. But it certainly is one that's pretty important if you are working through the details of this. If you are someone building applications, you're probably already familiar with this. You may be doing some certificate pinning anyway with this. There are a number of you that chose pinning. 28% of you chose pinning, and that is what the right answer would be in this case. Self-signed, 43% or so of you say the answer is self-signed. A self-signed certificate is one that you digitally sign yourself rather than sending it out to a third-party certificate authority to sign it. Self-signed certificates are incredibly common, especially if it's an application that's in-house. It's one that you use yourself. Maybe it's a web server in-house. The only people connecting to this web server are in your company. You don't need a third party to vouch for you. You're your own company. You can vouch for yourself with your own employees. So a self-signed certificate makes perfect sense. But a self-signed certificate does not describe a developer embedding a certificate into a mobile app, and that would not be the correct answer. We have stapling. That's close to what we saw there with pinning and having it there. Stapling is a similar scenario, but in this particular case, we're not embedding the certificate into the app, so we would not use stapling for that. We've got hashing. 10% of you chose hashing, which is a great way to create a fingerprint or an integrity check for a type of data. But hashing itself does not embed a certificate into a mobile app. And then escrow is when a third party would hold on to your private keys. This is especially important if you have data that needs to be recovered, but you only want to recover that data by going to a third party, getting the keys and recovering it. So the third party effectively becomes an oversight for the process of decrypting that data. There's also other great reasons to use an escrow and have multiple keys, and certain number of keys can be used, kind of like the idea of putting in 2 keys to launch the missile. You can do a similar thing with certificates and private keys. So it's kind of interesting how you might have something like that work. But in the case of embedding a certificate into a mobile app, the answer we were looking for is indeed pinning. Pinning is what we were hoping to find. So that's the answer we were wanting to get from here. If you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that has a list of or contains a certificate saying, yes, you were here to watch this 1 hour of a webinar category CEU, a continuing education unit. To earn this CEU, all you have to do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, put your name, your email address, put in the subject line, put August 2023, and then in the body of the message by itself, please have a look and be familiar with, on a line by itself, let me think of what word we'd like to use. Let's just use pinning, because that's the one we just did. Let's use pinning. Just put the word pinning into that message. And then in the rest of that message, you can put anything you'd like. You don't have to put anything at all. You can just send the message to me. I do like to read through these. And if you'd like to tell me about where you are with your studies and why you're getting the CEU and the things you did to get here, I love to read through those. So just something, I'm not able to respond back to all of those because I get so many of these every month. But this is something that can help you if you're in the process of earning some CEUs to renew a certification. Absolutely, you're able to use these. So I think that might help you as well. For those of you that are as pedantic as I am, and you recognize that why is the 42% taking up 100% of the line? The chat room's all talking about it. Yeah, you're right. I've already sent in a feature request. I'm way ahead of you on that one. We can talk grains of sand back and forth over this, I assure you, but this is not my service, so I don't get to program it. So we wait for the developers again to program all of that. So I appreciate the thought, though, whenever we work through it. It is a bit of a pain, isn't it? It's right there. You would think it would be half of the piece. Were we talking badly about developers again? Maybe a little bit. Let's do another question. Let's work through something else. This question that I have up asks, a system administrator has determined that spoofed email originated in another country. Which of the following most likely provided this information? Would it be NetFlow, syslog, metadata, IPFix, or SFlow? Again, all of these are real things. I didn't make this up. The question again asks, a system administrator has determined that a spoofed email originated in another country. Which of the following most likely provided this information? Is it NetFlow, syslog, metadata, IPFix, or SFlow? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA or use the Vevox app and ID that is on your screen to figure out the details. It's interesting people would bring up the 100% things, one of the first things I saw. But Vevox just is so good in all of these other cases. For those of you that have been with us a while, we were using another service prior to this, and we were doing a live stream one day, and the service just stopped working. And I waited a day, and I opened a ticket with the provider, and they go, yeah, it's broken. Like, it's been 24 hours. It's still broken? Yep, it's still broken. So unfortunately, we weren't able to use that service anymore, but I like some of the stuff that's here in Vevox. In fact, in our second hour, we'll be opening up the chat room for questions, and we've got, well, not the chat room, but we've got a way in Vevox for you to submit your questions. You can even do it now in Vevox with the little tab that's at the top of the screen, which should be there. I should probably have a look at that and make sure it is. But in any case, it's a centralized point that makes it so much easier for me. And in this particular case, when we're doing a live stream, I want it to be easy for you and easy for me. So we get some options there to be able to choose from both of those. Let's see how you did with this one. Again, a lot of people have locked in your answers, not as many as the last one. The question asked, a system administrator has determined that a spoofed email originated in another country. Which of the following most likely provided this information? Is it NetFlow, syslog, metadata, IPFix, or SFlow? And as we stop the polling, we have 50% of us, which takes up the entire bar, that says metadata. See, I'm with you. I feel you. Metadata is what half of you have chosen as the right answer, but 20% say the answer is NetFlow. We also have about 19% that say the answer is syslog. And IPFix comes in at about 8% and SFlow at 2%. So this is one of these scenarios where we've now determined, someone has determined, that this email is from another country, but how did you figure that out? Well, I'll bet if you look at the header of your email message, there's some information in there that's not part of the email. It's really more of directives is part of the message that tell you the path that particular email message took. So it's not the message, it's instead information that is sent along with the message as metadata. Metadata is information or data that's describing other types of data. And in an email, that header is metadata that's describing the email that you're reading. Most of the time, we don't even see the header unless we specifically go into our email app and tell it to let's view the header or let's view the entire message. And then suddenly you see all of that header information at the top of the email. Very, very useful. An email shows who's sending it, this information, where they're sending it from, the IP addresses that were used. And that's how we were able to take this email and figure out, where did this really start? Where did this message really originate? It did not originate where we thought it did. Instead, it originated in a different country. And here's the IP address associated with the email server in that country. But there's also metadata that you can get from your mobile phone. In fact, you can look at all of your pictures on your mobile phone. And if you look into the metadata of those pictures, it will tell you a huge amount of information about the image. It will tell you the lighting or the exposure rating that was used for that particular image. It'll tell you the GPS coordinates of where that image was taken from. Already, you can see there's maybe very sensitive information in these images. It tells you information about whether you were holding the phone upright or properly horizontal. So you've got a good bit of metadata in there to pull from. That's why very early on with things like Twitter and Facebook, they just allowed you to upload images and they didn't strip out the metadata. So people were able to download your images and look at the metadata to see the GPS coordinates where you're taking those pictures from. And if you took the pictures from your house, now everybody on the internet knows where you live. Perhaps not exactly the type of information you would like to go out with that. So I think that's a good example of metadata on your phone with the GPS location. Your web browsing, your web browser itself sends a lot of metadata going out. And then there's even files on your system that might have a name, address, a phone number, other information in there as well. Metadata is everywhere, and it can provide you a lot of information. There's metadata with your word processing documents, your spreadsheets, the images you store. Practically everything has metadata, and you can really gather quite a bit. Let's look at metadata from an email. Here's a header from an email message. So you can see there is IP address this was received by, and the name, the fully qualified domain name of who received it and when they received it, the date and time, the return path for that message, the received message, and then we've got X originating IP. We've got received SFP, which is used for confirming that the message really started with the originating party. And there's the authentication information with DKIM. We've got, is this all sounding familiar? It should from your exam objectives. And then we even have key and information in here, digital signatures that we can use to look at how this was sent through the network. Did anything change with this document? All of this is there. Go to your email client right now. Even if you use, I think this was in Yahoo Mail, you can go to Google Mail. Whatever mail you're using has an option to show you the entire raw code of the email, and all your metadata will be at the top. Incredibly useful to have. And that might be something that as you're going through the details of wondering how you should decipher this one, there's probably some metadata in there that's going to help you quite a bit. So that is the right answer. We had 50% of you that chose metadata. If you want to know more on this, it's in my 601 course, section 4.3 under log management, to be able to have that there. We also have other ones that are in here. For example, NetFlow and syslog are very commonly used to gather statistics from devices. NetFlow from the flow of traffic across your network, and syslog is a standard way to transfer log files from one device to, very commonly, a SIM or some other type of log consolidation front end. Those two are great for collecting data, but they're not really going to tell you if an email originated in another country. In fact, NetFlow doesn't show you email information that way, and syslog commonly doesn't log that, or at least the type of logs you would be transferring with syslog do not commonly log that. So that doesn't help you to get that information. We've got IPFix, which is used for performance testing. That's not going to help you either to figure out where a spoofed email may have come from. And then SFlow, also another type of flow monitor, very similar to NetFlow, sort of a newer version. SFlow also doesn't tell you where a spoofed email might have originated from. So the only answer here that really makes any sense in our list here has to be metadata. That is the one highlighted. That is the right answer. And hopefully that's the one you chose. And if you didn't, make sure you go back and understand not just how metadata is associated with this, but make sure you understand all of those other options as well. Well, I know we're at the top of the hour. Really, we're a little bit after it, but I have one more question for you for this study group. This question is one that comes from my practice exams. My practice exams this is a book that has 3 90-question practice exams on this single document, this single PDF or single physical book. As with the course notes, if I can find my book here, there we go. I have the practice exams book here. It's a thick one. It's a big book, 380 pages. 3 90-question exams. There are 5 performance-based questions for each of these 3 exams. So there's 15 performance-based questions in here. We've got a lot in here, not just multiple choice, performance-based questions, and then detailed information. But I have for you a question from my book. So let's step through a question that I have. I just pulled it directly from the book. This is question A46, just to give you an idea of how this book works. This question asks, and again, no answers in the chat room, please. The question asks, a manufacturing company has moved an inventory application from their internal systems to a PaaS service. Which of the following would be the best way to manage security policies on this new service? Would that be DLP, SIM, IPS, or CASB? Now, this is a PDF, so if you have something you can annotate with, you could draw on it, you could circle what you think the answer is. I have tools that are built into my PDF reader that allows me to highlight sections, or if I think I know the answer, I can select an answer here. You've got a number of different ways to go through and annotate what's here. Another nice part of this also is that to see the answer, you would flip over to page 33. I'm on page 18 right now. You would scroll down to page 33, or you would, to really get the details, which is what we're going to do, you would have to scroll down to page 85. But instead of scrolling, this is a PDF, so I've built in links to every question, so I can simply click where it says the details, and it takes me to page 85, where we get the same question, and it tells me the answer is D, CASB. And then it gives me a description of why that is the right answer. Now, that by itself is not too innovative. I think we see questions all the time on the internet, albeit sometimes not as high quality as this, but it will tell you what the answer is and maybe give you a little bit of an explanation. My problem is that I answer these questions wrong all the time. And if you're ever working through this, this is a real problem because you really want to know why you got an answer wrong. So in my book, every incorrect answer is documented. You can, if you answered SIM, you can see the answer for SIM, and it will tell you why that's not the right answer. And from the perspective of learning this information to take the exam, this is a great feedback loop because now you didn't get the question right, you got it wrong. So getting it wrong, you not only learned why you got it wrong, you learned why the right answer was right And in fact, even if you got it right, I would recommend you read through the wrong answers as well, because you might get a question on your exam that deals with these other topics. So you're already learning even if you got it wrong, and you're learning if you got it right. That's the best of both worlds, in my opinion. Now, if you read through the question and none of these sound familiar, you don't even know what the question meant, you have no idea what I'm talking about, I also put a link to the video there that was used to create this question, so that you can watch the video, get a better understanding of what I'm talking about with these topics, and now you can revisit this question. Now that we're done with this question, I have a back button in my browser, or my PDF reader. Most PDF readers do, and I can just go back to where we started, and then I can go to the next question on my list. Those are my practice exams, and they have a wealth of information inside. If you want practice exams that are truly been written to meet and match the same objectives listed in CompTIA's own official exam objectives, this is the practice exams for you. You don't have to put up with the badly written questions on the internet or questions from a third party that come from 2 versions ago of an exam. That's really something that might help you. If you want more information on this, you can go to professormesser.com/securitype. There's even a video there, and that can help you even see more information about these practice exams. And of course, if you like I didn't mention this with the course notes, but if you purchase the physical edition, you get the digital edition for free. So if you have to wait, of course, for me to ship this to you, but the instant you purchase it, you can download the PDF and start using these practice exams and course notes right now. And if you buy them together, a little bit of a discount too, so that might help you. Well, that's an hour of Q&A. We've got a lot that we went through. I will always tell you to make sure you grab those objectives. They will tell you everything you need to know for your exam, and CompTIA does not go outside the scope of these objectives. Other people will tell you they do, but they actually don't. The exam stays very, very close to these objectives. And that's why I tell people, if you know everything listed in these objectives, you're going to pass your exam without a problem. These are free to download from the CompTIA website. I have a link over to that. Go to professormesser.com/objectives, or go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. It'll take you right there. You'll be able to find it without any type of problem. We do one of these study groups for Security Plus every month. Of course, we have other study groups we do. For example, in September the 5th and 7th, we have our A Plus study group. We have our Network Plus study group on September 13th, and our next Security Plus study group is currently scheduled for September the 20th. These times and dates sometimes change, thanks to the chaos that is my world. But I do update these calendars immediately when there's a change. So if you're watching this video and it's been a couple of weeks, or maybe it's even after September, and you're wondering when's the next live event, simply go to professormesser.com/calendar. I update the calendar there immediately when there's a change. I also update the events calendar that's in Discord. Both are updated simultaneously. So you're never looking at old content. You're never looking at old dates. This is always the most recent set of dates. And sometimes we do change. For example, the Network Plus we did this week, or last week, that we did here in August had to be changed. So I just update the calendar. Everybody now knows that's when the next event is going to be. Well, although I'm done asking you questions about Security Plus, it's now time for the after show, where you can ask me questions about technology, security, Security Plus, other industry certifications, or really anything in general. I'm more than happy to address any questions. Don't forget that you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Simply visit professormesser.com/ the name of the place you'd like to find me, /Twitter, /Instagram, /YouTube, /Discord. We're all there. You've, of course, got discounted vouchers on my site. You don't need a discount code. You don't need to add an extension into your browser or other types of ridiculousness. Simply go to professormesser.com/vouchers. They're already discounted. What could be easier? If you're in the U.S. or Canada or a U.S. territory, it's a great place to save a little money on your Security Plus or any of your CompTIA exams. And of course, we've got our course notes, practice exams, and so much more on our website. Simply visit us at professormesser.com/securitycn, or you can find the pull-down links on my site will take you right there as well. It's easy to find, plenty to see there. And if you can't find it, send me a note on Discord. Send me a message using the Contact Us link on our site. I will be more than happy to help you. Well, that brings us to the end of this first hour. Thanks for joining us. Stick around, though. I'm going to be taking your questions in just a moment using the Vevox app. but we appreciate you being here during this first hour. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Okay. I should play exit music, except then it would get taken away on the internet with the music. Let's see if we can get things up and running now. Well, that was a good first hour. You guys did really well with these questions, by the way. So I think that's a good way to approach these. Now, I want to make it so that you can ask me questions in the Q&A section of our website. We already have a number of you that have put questions up. I need to close this polling that I have here so you can see the details of this. And we'll have it all here. We'll hide that. There we go. Now you can see on your screen that you can submit questions for this hour. Whoop, can't see it there, can you? You can submit questions for this hour of the study group at any time. It's in your Vevox app. Simply go to vevox.app. The ID number is right there, 160-605-388. And there is a tab there that you can link right there. I'm seeing Dino in the chat room. No, it was Kenneth in the chat room. Thanks from the Hollywood, Florida Circle. Yes, I used to work right next to the Circle in Hollywood, Florida. And if you're looking for weird things to happen, all you have to do is sit down in the Hollywood Circle and something weird will happen to you. I know, but it's true. The stories I have, some of them are not so great. There's some bad things that have happened on the Hollywood Circle. You don't want to be there for that. Let's shift gears now over to Q&A, shall we? Enough of the Hollywood Circle, which is interesting because Hollywood Beach is beautiful. All up and down the coast there is so nice. But it's just that there's a little section, that little part of the world that's just a little bit askew for some reason. Not really sure why that happens, but indeed it does. So let's have a look at questions that you have submitted, and you can continue to submit these questions as we go through this. Kenneth in chat room says, yes, very true. It is very true. Just weirdness to have those there. Okay, so let's start with more of kind of an administrative question, one that we can discuss here. This is from Aaron in the chat room who asks, well, first two things. I've just passed my test this past Monday. So let's stop right there. Congratulations, Aaron, on your new, I'm assuming that's Security Plus because you're talking about the 50 CEUs. So congratulations on your new Security Plus. Great news. Glad to hear it. And it's only 2 or 3 days fresh at this point. So that's got to be a good feeling to have that in your pocket. So Aaron asks, how many Professor Messer study groups would it take to reach 50 CEUs? And the answer is it's not possible. Not because we haven't done 50 study groups. We've done a lot more than 50 study groups, but CompTIA only allows you to accumulate 10 webinar category CEUs in any 3-year renewal period for Security Plus. So that's the problem, is that you can't reach 50 CEUs just by watching study group replays. Sadly, I wish you could. That would be so great, but you cannot. Unfortunately, that's just sort of the way they do this, is that you're not able to, maybe it makes sense though, if you think about it, just watching 50 videos, probably not a good way to go through this. So I would say that that's probably, if you're in the situation where you're watching study groups, it's a great way to learn, but unfortunately you can't watch 50 of them and renew your certification. I kind of wish you could. That would be pretty awesome if you could, but you can't. So I think for Security Plus, it's 10. For Network Plus and A Plus, it's even fewer than that. You'll have to look at the CompTIA website to see the details there. But that is, I say unfortunately, but it's really for the best, isn't it? That's the case. So that's a great idea, and I'm with you, but unfortunately won't happen. And it does make sense if you think about it. But there's other things that you can do, and probably things you already do with your job or day to day, that you can also accumulate CEUs with. So I think that's a good place to go. This is one that comes up quite a bit, so I'm going to mention it. In fact, it's worth mentioning here from that perspective too. So let's have a look at this question from Cameron that asks, How important is a knowledge of port numbers for the SY0-601? My coworker said that they had multiple questions relating to them when they originally took the exam. We'll also mention to your coworkers that they've now violated the terms of their candidate agreement. Are ports still a major focus? Let's list all of the ports that are listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. Here we go. That's it. There aren't any. There's no ports listed in the CompTIA exam objectives for Security Plus. 0. There aren't any. We'll go find one. Let's look. I'm certain I have a set of objectives right here. There they are. Let's quickly go through. Any port numbers there? Nope. 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 Not there. No. None there. No. Nope. About domain 4. There. No. There's none there. None there. And none there. There's none there. There's no port numbers. Now, that doesn't mean that you will not get a question on your exam that has a reference to a well-known port number, because the thing that is in the exam objectives, the important part of this, I apologize for being just a little bit flippant, but you can bear with me. This exam objective gives you information on how this exam is laid out. And one of the things they tell you is this is equivalent to 2 years of hands-on experience working in a security/systems administrator role. So they say once you have completed your studies and you have earned your Security Plus, this is the type of knowledge that you would have for someone who has 2 years of hands-on experience. So during that 2-year period, it is just assumed that somewhere in your world of doing desktop, server, and network administration that you've run into some type of port number. And in most cases, you probably run into port 80 and port 443. Oh, it's in my browser. Port 22, oh, it's SSH. There you go. There's 3 port numbers, and you really didn't even have to think about it. They're just there. But the exam has almost no emphasis in port numbers at all. If they did, it would be listed in our exam objectives, and it is not listed in our exam objectives. So we know that that's not the case. And in fact, I've seen people, they've come to my site and say, I have this page of 150 port numbers they gave me that I need to memorize for Security Plus. Like 150 port numbers? Why are you memorizing port numbers for Security Plus? And then I have to ask, well, how many port numbers are listed in your exam objectives? And they look through and go, oh, there aren't any. All right, well, why don't you memorize 10? Maybe that if you're really into memorizing port numbers, just pick the most popular 10 and memorize those. And I guess that gives you something to do. But you might not get any questions on your exam that have anything to do with port numbers. In fact, I would recommend, this is the very controversial part that I will talk about here, is my recommendation is you don't memorize any port numbers. If you don't know any now, don't worry about memorizing any of them. I think you would be better off spending that time memorizing things that are actually listed in the exam objectives. Now, I don't think that's really that controversial when you think about it. You have this big list of exam objectives. It's enormous. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of topics on here to learn. There's no way that you know all of them. It is more likely that you will get a question about something in this list than getting a question that has anything to do with port numbers. Now, that doesn't mean that port numbers might not show up. I think that's probably something it's possible. But CompTIA themselves have given you a list of everything on the exam, and port numbers aren't in there. So why would you spend your time on port numbers? Now, let's say you've gone through the entire set of exam objectives, and now you know everything in the objectives. Should you study the most popular 10 port numbers? Maybe you could do it then. But I would actually argue then you probably should just go back through the exam objectives. There's no way you know all of them yet. So that's why I tell people from the perspective of CompTIA and what they're telling us and what we're actually seeing on the exam, there is not an emphasis on exam objectives, not an emphasis from the exam objectives on port numbers. It's simply not in there. And boy, wait till you get to the 701, which has less of everything. There's practically nothing in there that you need to memorize. It's just all content of other kinds. It's not the rote memorization to be able to have a feeling on this. So make sure that you are make sure you're more familiar with the exam objectives than you ever are with port numbers. And I think you're going to do fine and work through those. I think that's the best approach that you can take for those. And thank you for that question, Cameron. I look forward to everyone's cards and letters telling me about how wrong I am, because that's usually how it goes. And I'm fine with that. And sometimes there's good points there. And I think my nuance was very specific here. I'm not locking you down to anything, but I'm telling you what your best approach is for studying. So let's go through some more questions that you have sent in. There's also folks that are talking about this and saying, well, the Network Plus has port numbers in their objectives, so why don't we memorize their port numbers? But you're not taking the Network Plus exam. You're taking the Security Plus exam, and the Security Plus exam objectives have none. Now, if the Network Plus lists out specifically port numbers and Security Plus doesn't, that's where I'm getting this from. And quite honestly, the exam doesn't really ask many port number questions at all from this. So that should give you an idea of this. Let's do some more questions on here and work through this. In the chat room, I mentioned earlier about how you don't have port numbers or a lot of other rote memorization things from the 701. People are asking, is it easier? Well, we don't know yet. I have my own opinion of how I think 701 will be. And I think as we get closer to the release date, we can talk more about the differences between the two. But right now, 701 doesn't exist, so it doesn't matter. You should be studying for your 601 so you get the certification, you put it in your pocket. I think that's the important part. Let's keep going with this and other things that we have in your list. You guys are sending tons of questions in. So I'm sort of cycling through a number of these that are coming in. This is one that is also a frequently asked question. I think this is worth talking about. If I hit the right button there we go. The question from Jen asks, are multiple answer questions heavier in points than the single answer questions? In fact, I'm going to modify your question and add to it just a little bit. And the question that I also get is, are the performance-based questions worth more than the multiple choice-based questions? The most accurate answer for either of these is we have no way to know. CompTIA does not share any of their grading details, so there's no way to know if it's worth more or not. Do we think that it could be worth more? Yeah, could be. Might not be. So we have no idea whether that's the case. In fact, we have many cases, and we've talked with people in our study groups, and we've discussed this with other folks who've taken their exams, that some folks they skipped over their performance-based questions. They went right to multiple choice. They went through all of the multiple choice. And then as they were circling back to go through the performance-based questions, they ran out of time. They literally did not touch the performance-based questions, and they passed. So I think a lot of people believe the performance-based questions are so complex and contain so much information that they must be the vast majority of points that you would ever get with your exam. In fact, people have not passed their exam have said, it must have been because I didn't answer the performance-based questions properly. When in reality, it appears for many folks, you can answer the multiple choice-based questions and still pass the exam without even answering performance-based questions. So the answer that is the best one is we don't know how many points a question is worth. We don't know if multiple answer questions are heavier in points than single answer. We don't know. In fact, there's a pretty good argument to be made now that people have talked to us about their scoring that multiple choice-based questions may certainly have more points than the performance-based. But again, we don't have a way to know that. There's no way in any type of form to reverse engineer this. So we don't know. So I would tell folks that are really working on trying to game the system. I'm trying to hack the exam. I'm trying to figure out how many questions I need to answer right and how many questions I need to answer wrong. I'm telling you right now, don't even try it. Don't even bother with it. Whatever you come up with will be wrong anyway, because you have no way to confirm it. And it could take you down a road or a strategy that ultimately would be a bad strategy because we have no way to know anything about how this exam is graded. They simply don't tell us. So I would caution you very carefully about trying to reverse engineer the grading system. It's a waste of your time, and ultimately you're not going to be correct anyway. And ultimately, even if you were correct, you would not be able to know that you were correct. But I think most of the time you would not be correct. There's just too many variables involved to be able to do that. So I would say don't worry about it. I think you'll be fine. The best advice I can give you about grading on the exam is to completely ignore everything there is to know about grading on the exam, because it doesn't matter. You should focus on answering the questions correctly. Focus on understanding the exam objectives. That will in turn allow you to answer as many questions correctly as possible. And then whatever the process is that somehow calculates that final score, it will be whatever the score happens to be. And you will have no idea how they came up with that score. You will of course not be able to argue about the score because you have no idea how they created it. Maybe they're onto something. But that is why I tell you, don't worry about the scoring. Worry about knowing the exam objectives. The scoring will take care of itself. The final score will work out to be whatever the final score is going to be. You should focus on objectives. Don't worry so much on how things are graded. I know a technologist, we want to know how this works. We want to pop open the hood. We want to look inside. We want to understand what algorithm are they using to create the scoring graph on. Maybe there's a curve between the, we don't know. We don't know what they're doing. So I would tell you very carefully, very specifically, don't worry about this. You don't know what questions you got right. You don't know what questions you got wrong. You just don't know. So there's no point in trying to reverse engineer it. You'll never know. This one of the mysteries of the universe. You will go to your grave never knowing how your exam was scored, and you're just going to have to deal with that. If you have someone you can talk to, if you can call me. I'll talk to you about it. But ultimately, it's the same answer. Yeah, you're never going to know. It's one of those things. Are we alone in the universe? I don't know. Is there a God? We just don't know. We sort of do, but don't we? We don't know. There's no way to prove it. Well, what about my score on the exam? We don't know. We don't know. It's those big questions of the universe that we just don't know. And so there you go. And we can have someone on this side say, yes, it is, and that side say it isn't. We can just keep going through there, but we don't know. Let's do another question. I think I've talked enough about scoring, haven't I? Are we tired of it? Probably. Let's keep going through this. Lots of people asking questions about Security Plus, Security Plus, Security Plus. So let's, there's a few questions that are in here I want to kind of touch on, but I'm concerned about the content that's in here. So I'm going to maybe dance around a number of these and working through them. So let's have a look at people. There's a lot of people in here that are taking practice exams. What a good opportunity for me to talk about practice exams. It's just blurry. I have to come back. That's what I get for having a lens with that small focal range. That is, practice exams are whether they use mine, which you should be, or someone else's, which you should not be, but use practice exams. And that should be the last thing you do with your studies. You've read the book, you've gone through all of the details, you've really, you've done some hands-on, you've watched some videos, you've gone through the process of studying, but how do you know if you really got the content right? Well, you do that by going through practice exams and seeing if you can answer them. Hopefully they're practice exams that are written to have a similar style to the actual exam, and hopefully you're using practice exams that are actually accurate to the SY601 exam objectives. Not all are. So if you are doing that, then you'll get a pretty good idea of how you scored on those. So if you take my practice exams, there's 90 questions. If you get all of them right, you got 90 out of 90. You can calculate a percentage from that. In the book, I give you a list of what percentages I think are good for you to consider taking the actual exam. So at least you have some guidelines to go through for that. A lot of people in the questions are saying, okay, I got a 70%, I got a 75%, I got an 80% on these practice questions. Am I ready for the exam? Well, I can tell you that you did pretty well in the practice questions, but the best way to know if you are ready for the exam is to, you're not going to be ready for this. It's going to be, you're going to not believe what I'm telling you. Go practice exam objectives. Go to the SY0-601 CompTIA Security Plus Certification Exam Objectives document. This is the best way for you to know that this, if you are ready to take the exam. So let's drill down. Let me go to the very first section of the exam objectives, just to give you a feel for this. This is the first domain, which is threats, attacks, and vulnerabilities. It's section 1.1, compare and contrast different types of social engineering techniques. So this is effectively a checklist. Now I've got a checklist, and I can go through, and if I can explain that bullet to someone else, I can check it off my list. So we have phishing. If you can explain to someone else, or maybe yourself in a mirror, some people will use a rubber duck, put the rubber duck there, put your stuffed bear, and explain to the stuffed bear what phishing is. Okay, now we go to the next one. If we know that, go to smishing. And you might say to yourself, smishing? I'm not sure I know what smishing is. Okay, circle it. There's one you can circle. Let's keep going. Vishing. Oh, I know what vishing is. That's phishing with a phone call over voice. Spam. Okay, I know what spam is. Here's how spam would work. Spam over instant messaging. Spam. Well, I get that all the time in text messages on my phone, so I'm very familiar with that one. Spear phishing, dumpster diving, shoulder surfing, farming, tailgating, eliciting information, whaling, prepending, identity fraud, and on and on and on. These are the bullets you need to know. By the way, this is only the first section of the first domain. Not even all the way through it yet. There are a lot of bullets to check mark here. So if you can check mark all of these, you're done with this section. Time to go to the next section. Given a scenario, analyze potential indicators, determine the type of attack, and go through all of these. This is a big exam. So this might be one of those cases where there's just a lot here to pull from. There's a lot to go through and to figure out what's going on. So I highly recommend you use this as a study guide. By the way, this is how I created the videos themselves. This is the checklist for the videos. So if you're in this and you're thinking, I don't remember what smishing is, well, just go to section 1.1 of my video course, the one that talks specifically about social engineering techniques, and probably the one dealing with phishing, because that sounds like phishing. That's where smishing is. So I think that's a really good way that you can go through the process of knowing everything you need to know for your exam. So don't worry so much about the score you get on a practice exam. Instead, focus more on what will be asked in here. And ultimately, if you know what's in this list, what you get on the practice exam will be higher, and you will be more prepared for your actual exam. So I think that's very, very good place to go. If you're ever thinking about what you can focus your efforts on, that's where I would recommend you focus your efforts. That will give you the information you need, and that kind of gives you an idea of, don't worry so much about going through and hitting a particular percentage. Instead, see if you know everything that's listed in the exam objectives, and the percentages will take care of themselves. There's no reason here to wag the dog. We just want, if you treat the dog nice, give it some pets, give it some lovin's, plenty of good food, throw the ball around, the tail's going to wag. So do all the right things up front. The score will take care of itself in the end. Okay, let's do some more questions. I've got more to go through. So other things in this list. I like that people ask questions and they send another one and said, okay, never mind. I probably answered it. So, okay, well, we won't mind that one at all. Other questions. Let's keep going. There's a lot of good stuff here. Other things that are in here. People asking also, I think this is a good one to mention, and I want to actually publish this one so we can all see this. Johnny asked, how do we get credit for this webinar and replays? I'm assuming, Johnny, that you're referring to the continuing education unit credit. Sometime during the first hour of every study group, I mention a process you should follow and a special super secret code word that you could use to get credit for that particular stream. There's 1 hour of a webinar category CEU that is applied, and it works whether you're watching live or whether you're watching replays. So you could go back. Well, we already mentioned in this after show that you can earn up to 10 CEUs for your renewal, if that's how you're planning to renew. by watching 10 different study groups and submitting the CEU requests for all 10 of those study groups, ideally submitting them individually each time you watch a video. It helps me a lot if they're individual. That's where you get 10 of those webinars, 10 of those webinar category CEUs. And so you're just going to have to listen in sometime during that first hour. You have to follow the directions I gave you, and you have to use the super secret code word. If you don't follow the process, you don't get the CEU. If you don't provide the super secret code word, you don't get the CEU. I gotta be strong with that. I gotta show the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, unfortunately, I can't do that. As a follow-up in the chat room, folks are asking, can I use these CEUs to renew my certification if the certification has expired? As I mentioned, when you first take the exam and you pass it, your certification is good for 3 years. For example, we've already talked today that the 601 exam retires in July of next year. But what if July of next year I take the 601 exam and I pass it before it retires? Well, if I do that, I now am Security Plus certified for 3 years. It really doesn't matter what happens to the exams at that point. Once you pass, you're certified for 3 years. And after 3 years, your your certification expires. So that can be an issue because you may not want your certification to expire. You may want to continue to be Security Plus certified. There are a number of different ways to renew your certification. One of these ways is to collect continuing education unit credits. And if your cert has expired, there is nothing to renew. It's expired. That's why we always tell you, don't let these certs expire. Use CertMaster CE, get a higher level exam and take it and pass it, collect CEUs, do whatever you need to do to renew that certification, and it will renew for another 3 years. I guess you could even take the Security Plus exam again if you wanted to. You don't want to do that, but you could if you really, really wanted to. I would highly recommend you don't, but that is a process. You could do that. You could take a newer version of the exam and you would renew your certification. So I would recommend you do that. But obviously, if you've hit that 3-year period and your exam has now expired, or when your cert is now expired, you can't renew that. It's not renewable. It's expired. So you don't want to be that person who has waited until it's too late and then their certification suddenly not valid any longer, and now you can't do anything. So don't be in that place. Kadeem in the chat room asks, are older versions still held to the same standard as new ones? And I think by versions, you mean exam versions. I guess it's good to kind of differentiate exams from certifications. So already, if you go back in the years with me, I had an SY0-301 course, a 401 course, a 501 course, a 601 course, and now we're going to do a 701 course. And those courses are so that you can earn your Security Plus certification. It doesn't matter which one of those you took, you got your Security Plus cert. If you took the 301 exam 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and you passed it, you were Security Plus certified, and then you've just renewed it every 3 years after that. You are just as Security Plus certified as someone who takes their 601 exam today and passes it. Getting the Security Plus certification doesn't have a version number associated. It doesn't have an exam version number associated with it. It's simply Security Plus. So don't worry about which one of these tests you take because it doesn't matter once you pass it. As soon as you pass it, you're Security Plus certified. So I would really recommend if you're looking at this, and a lot of people do this, they think, if I take the newer exam, it's a better Security Plus certification. Actually, it's the same. It's exactly the same Security Plus certification as somebody who takes the 601 and passes it. Same credential. There's nothing new there. And quite honestly, nobody really cares which version of the exam you took. Because as I mentioned, you're just going to renew it every 3 years anyway. The only times in these live streams, in fact, I've asked that question. I've said, who is working for someone who really cares about the exam version that you're taking? The only people that have ever said, my boss cares, are people who are instructors who are giving the 701 course. Well, you don't count. That's not what I was asking. But you were technically correct, and as we all know, that's the best kind of correct. So that is the case, that really the only ones who care are the people that are teaching the courses. Those people teaching courses, though, they're a little bit off. I got to tell you, there's something not quite right there. But I'm just saying, that's my opinion of this. Trust me, just spend a day with me. You'll understand. But that's where, if you ever get into worrying about versions of exams, don't worry about the version of the exam. Just pass the exam. Doesn't matter which one you take, just pass it. Get your certification, and then none of that matters anymore. That's really an important part of this. Let's do another question. I've got more in here. In fact, I have a lot more in here. You guys are amazing, by the way, with these questions. Just remarkable. Other questions. So, well, this is sort of a nice follow-up to this. And I guess this is where these questions come from. So this is a good second follow-up to this thing we just asked. This is from Anonymous, who says, do you have study videos for Network Plus N10-007, the N10-008, and what's the difference between the N10-007 and 008? Well, you got a lot going on here. These exam numbers are referring to a version of the exam, and these exams are generally updated about every 3 years. And they're usually retired about every 3.5 years. So they give, as I mentioned, there's that overlap period. The N10-007 was a previous version of the Network Plus exam that was offered. And then after its 3 years was up, they introduced the N10-008. That's the current version of the Network Plus exam. And then when those 3 years are up, they'll introduce an N10-009. And you'll have a new one there. So you've got these different versions of the exam. But again, you pick one. You pick the one that's current for the time you happen to live in. You learn everything that's on the exam objectives. You go and take the exam. You pass it, and now you're Network Plus certified. There is quite a bit of difference between the two, but in reality, the N10-007 was retired quite a long time ago. It's not offered any longer. So although I do have videos out there that can help you with N10-007, doesn't do you any good because that exam is no longer offered. The current version is the N10-008. And as I always say, make sure all of your study materials match the version of the exam that you're planning to take. That's probably an important consideration here. Some of you may be thinking, I'm going to wait until November and take the 701, but I'm going to study from 601 materials. Super bad idea. And in this particular case, a really super bad idea because the 601 exam and the 701 exam objectives, remarkably different. You thought it was different from the 501 to the 601? Oh, you just wait. Wait until November when we do our update session. That's going to be something for you to really look at this and go, what's different? It's quite a revamping. There is some overlap, certainly. A lot of the topics that are in 601 do appear on the 701. A lot of the topics on the 601 don't appear on the 701. So I highly, highly recommend you only study from materials that match the version of the exam you're planning to take. So happy. So hopefully that can help you too. So if you're someone who is really working towards earning these certification exams, make sure you study from the right materials and make sure you take the right version of the exam. You don't want to be in that situation where you've studied for the 601, you go in to take the 701 and you're asking yourself, what are these topics? I don't even know what they're talking about. Yeah, you studied for the wrong version. Make sure they sync up and you'll be fine. That's the only thing. Once you sync them up, you're good. It's really making sure that you sync them up. That's the important part. So, of course, go back and make sure. In fact, if you aren't sure, go look at your books now. Go see what books you're using, what numbers are on the book, and make sure it matches what the latest version of the exam happens to be. I mention this always in the very first video of all of my courses. And I give you an idea of this is the number. Here's when we think this is when it was released. This is when we think it will be going away. Make sure you check CompTIA's website. Make sure you check your study materials. Make sure all of these are the same because it's so important when you walk into the exam room. Let's do some more questions. Other things. Some folks on here. How long do I have to take the 601 exam? We think it will be retired in July of 2024. So in July, we think you've got about 11 months. Now, on average, it takes people about 2 to 3 months to study for this exam and take it. So that's probably the case for you. Maybe it takes you twice as long. It takes you 6 months. You still have 5 more months that you could study from. So a lot of people are worried that they're not going to have enough time to take the 601. Actually, you have more than enough time. If you take nothing else away today, more than enough time to take that 601 exam. Other questions. Let's keep going through this list. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I want to get these through here. Other things that you have. A lot of people are asking about other certifications. For example, this is a pretty good one that talks about taking an exam after Security Plus. What I recommend getting the SSCP or a CySa Plus certification after getting Security Plus. This is where you kind of have to decide what is the best thing for me. And everybody has a different path. Everybody has a different goal. Everybody has a different set of strategies for what they want to do with their career or with their life. So I usually tell people when they ask, what should I do next? Is my normal answer is, I don't know. What are you trying to do with your life? What are you trying to do? What's your overall goal? What is your career objective? What do you want the next thing to be in your career? Which I think is a reasonable question. You always hear people going to interviews, and you've probably been in interviews, and they've asked you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I don't know. It's 10 years from now. The entire world's going to be different in 10 years. Technology moves so fast that we have no idea what things are going to be happening in 10 years. 10 years ago, where was the cloud? It was just getting started. It was just on its very first wobbly legs, and we were trying to figure out orchestration and how we have all these devices talk to each other and how can we automate it. And it was sort of a learn as you go scenario. And now we've got 10 years of maturity on that. It's a very different world. So I tell people all the time, don't worry about what's happening 5 years from now. Don't worry what's happening 10 years from now. Just worry about what you want to do next. You should probably have an idea of where you think you would like to go in your career. Maybe you think someday I'd like to be in security. Well, you're going to need to know operating systems. You're going to need to know networking. You're going to need to know some aspect of security. There's a curve. There's a learning process to get from where you are to where you'd like to be. So we know there's a long-term goal that you probably have, but there should also be a what do I want to do next goal. What is the next step in my career? I often mention this as leveling up. So if you are working a job, my very first job was working outside of my college career. My very first job outside of college was working as a field service tech. Sort of a grunt job. Not even sort of, it was a grunt job. So you've got field service tech, but it was an amazing job to learn things. Yeah, there was a lot of hauling boxes and driving places and getting things done during the day, and then you're stuck in a traffic jam and your car's now having problems. Those things happen too, but you're learning so much as you're going through that process. So for me, I was thinking, I'm now learning all of this. It would be great for my next job to be in an office with air conditioning and not having to lift heavy boxes. That's what I wanted my next job to be, and something that would take what I already know and extend on that. Maybe learn more about operating systems. Maybe learn more about integrating those with network and integrating them and upgrading them with the modular new systems that were coming out. So I wanted a job working in a corporate environment. That was my leveling up. And I thought, how can I get there? Well, I probably should get this certification. I should probably work on my knowledge of this operating system, and I should reach out to people that I know in the industry and see if they have any positions open. And that's what I did. So I already had a list of things that I think would really help me to get that job. And that's what I usually tell people as well. Figure out what you want your next thing to be, and then go do research of all of the jobs in your area for that next thing. What do they want you to have? Do they want you to have an SSCP? Do they want you to have CySa Plus? Do they want you to have anything else? And they probably do. They probably have quite a list of things they would like you to have. That's who you should be taking your direction from. If that's really what you would like to do, is find out who they're hiring. What type of qualifications would they like to hire? You should probably get those qualifications. I think that's probably one of the best ways to really position yourself properly for a job like that, is to go find out what people would like to hire. Instead, people will tell me, oh, they're asking, I can't seem to get a job. And I'll say, well, what are they asking for? Well, they're asking for Security Plus. Like, do you have Security Plus? No. Okay. Have you thought about getting Security Plus? Because it sounds like they'd like you to have that. Oh, that's a good idea. Let me go get Security Plus. So that's the process you have to go through in your own mind. Ooh, they want Security Plus. I'm going to need to go get that. Or maybe you're looking through here and you notice 9 out of 10 of these job postings want an Azure certification. They want a Cisco certification. They want an AWS Amazon certification. They want a Security Plus certification. Whatever it is, whatever they want you to have, that's what you should go get. So I probably can't give you a good answer if you're asking, should I go get this or should I go get this? You could, either one probably works, but does anybody want you to have that? Or is that just something you think would be good? Which I often see in this industry as well. Don't take your own opinion about what you think would be good. Take somebody else's opinion who's hiring of what they think would be good. And I think that will help you. Now, you may get into this job. You may think they're asking the job, they want you to get an AWS certification. Okay, well, I'll go get that. But then you're thinking, you know what would really be fun, though, is if I went and got this certification or that certification. You can still go do that. You could still go get the CySa Plus. Nothing is preventing you from going out and getting those certs. But I think you should probably focus your efforts on what certification is going to get you the farthest for your particular goals and objectives. I think that's an important part. Other questions. Let's keep going through this list because we've got a lot here. And I think it's another thing. I see this a lot too, which is that people believe that if you go get the cert, that you are then automatically qualified for any job that would ask for that cert, which that doesn't necessarily work that way either. As part of the YouTube video description of this video, so look at that list of things that I have there. I list out a bunch of videos in there, and one of the videos I list is a video on how to get a job in IT with no experience. And I tell you really need 4 things, 4 elements to be able to be best positioned for a job in IT for someone who's never had a job in IT before. The first one is you have some type of formal education. We don't all have that. And sometimes we have different types of education. Some people have a 2-year degree. Some people have a 4-year degree. Some people have masters or doctorates that they have. All of these are valid. You don't even necessarily need a technology degree, although in some cases it does help, but it's not required. Just some type of formal degree, formal education. The second is that you have some type of industry certification. Well, we should be certainly familiar with that at this point of the live stream. So we all know about the Network Plus and the A Plus and the Security Plus and the Cisco and the Microsoft and the Azure and all of these things that we've already talked about. We know how the industry works with industry certifications, but they are important and employers do look for those. As badly, if you go on the internet anywhere and you ask, is this a good cert to get? You will get at least half of the responses will tell you certifications are stupid. They don't prove anything. And they're not going to help you get a job because the only thing that matters is experience. Well, that's not true either, as we've plainly seen by, talking to people. We know that's not true. Now, we're also not saying, by the way, and nobody has ever said, certifications prove that you know everything in the world. It says nobody's ever said this. Nobody's ever made that as a point. But for some reason, people like to refute that as if it is a point that someone has made. Yet nobody's ever said this. We can just agree with them. Yes, you're right. It doesn't prove that you know everything in the world. Nobody's ever said that it does, but it does help. I think we all know that once we go through the process of studying for certification, we go take the exam and we pass that exam, undeniably we've learned something. So there is a value to industry certifications, and the people hiring you, they know what the value is. They're not expecting you to know everything in the world just because you have a Security Plus, but they are expecting you to know the things that are associated with the Security Plus exam. This seems obvious, but the nuance is lost on the internet sometimes. So I think that for people that are getting those industry certifications, you already know the value, and the people hiring you also know the value. So that's the second element you need. The third element is you have some practical experience. Now, I didn't say professional experience because that implies you got paid. And in this case, it's our first foray into IT. We're trying to get our first job. You probably haven't been paid yet. But there are opportunities for you to get practical experience, hands-on, working with real systems, doing real things, either for a third party as a volunteer, maybe at your church or an organization that you're a part of. Maybe you make sure that all their antivirus is up to date. Maybe you make sure their operating system is being patched properly. Maybe you're checking their network connections and making sure that their internet connection works as efficiently as possible. All these things are great. All these things are what you should be doing. There's also an opportunity, if you don't have an organization you can do this with, there's also things you can do in your home to set up a home lab so that you've set up Windows Server with Active Directory. You've set up a pfSense for a firewall, and you're running that as your firewall at home, because that gives you a chance to explain to someone the process you went through to install these technologies. You most certainly hit a stumbling block during the installation. Something didn't work right. It always breaks. There's always something that goes wrong during these installs or things you didn't know about that you learned. That's a story. And when you walk into an interview, you need some stories. You need to have these stories in your pocket. So they say, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm this. I've been working towards this goal. I've worked towards these certifications. And along those lines, I've worked really hard to make sure I had some practical experience. Let me tell you about setting up Active Directory in my home lab and the craziness that went on. Or let me tell you about pfSense that I set up as my firewall. You'll never believe what I found attacking my network. Well, tell me more. I want to know the story. Okay, well, let's tell the story. And then you can talk about the installation. You could talk about where you broke everything and it didn't go well and you had to scrap it all and start over, or you had to do troubleshooting. That's what we want to hear as a hiring manager. We want to hear about your process for fixing these problems. IT is about a puzzle. IT is just one puzzle after another. Like, that's interesting. Let's move all the numbers around and see if it counts up properly now. Well, that's interesting. Let's do this puzzle that we're running into. Let's see if we can solve it. It's like a Rubik's Cube. Okay, I think I got it. That's IT in a nutshell, is solving problems. And if you're someone who loves to solve problems, you can set up a home lab, and you almost want problems to happen. You want a story. And the only time you really get a good story is when something breaks. So you can talk about, well, this is what I did, and this is the message I got, and I was really stumped. So I reached out to this group, or I sent a message in this subreddit, or I talked to people in this forum or on this Discord, and they talked about this problem. And I thought about that and said, you know what? I think that's the issue, and here's what I did to fix it. That's a 10-minute conversation about this. Oh, and maybe I have these reports that I created from pfSense showing all the people that hit my network. Look at this attack. I have a graph here of people hitting my site and trying to get in, and look at and you've got now information you can show them in a chart. That you're hired. Okay. That's a great story. Nobody's showing up with these stories, by the way. Rarely do you get someone showing up with that level of detail, and it's so simple to do. So that's your third one. Get some practical experience, and you can do this practical experience in your own home. And I give you just a couple of examples on doing that. I just gave you a couple, and they're in the video as well. And the fourth one, and I think we miss this one way too often, the fourth element that is perhaps one of the most fundamental, one of the most foundational elements in the job hunt is you know someone who already works there, and they know you. It has to work both ways. Can't just stalk people. Like, yeah, I know Bob. Yeah, I know where he lives. I know. Nope. You got to have some relationship with them. So maybe you met them at a Cisco user group. Maybe you met them at a Microsoft user group. We're doing this now again. We're going out to user groups. As much as they don't want us to be out and talk with people in public anymore, You can already see it happening again. They want to keep us at home and not talking to people. We're going to do it. We're going to our user group meetings. We're going to learn about Microsoft. We're going to learn about Cisco. We're going to learn about security. We're going to do all these things, and you should do that. Meeting people that are already in these roles can be very powerful for getting that job, because people want to hire people they know. People want to hire people they can trust. People want to hire people they've got some type of acquaintanceship or relationship with. And we're not talking about going out on the weekend to movies and you watch their dogs and you go, you go to their kids' presentations with them. That's not the relationship we're talking about. We're just talking about a business relationship. We have worked with them. We know them. We've been in groups with them. The Cisco user group meeting. We've gone to the Microsoft user group meeting. We've met them. In fact, many times they'll tell you, oh, you're looking for a job? Give me your resume. I'll submit it to my HR team. And if they like what they see, they'll bring you in. And if they hire you, I'll get a finder's fee and you get a job. That's a win-win. So sometimes knowing these people are fantastic for moving you through your career. You never know where these things are going to come from. The last job I got working for a third-party organization was literally a call out of the blue by someone I had worked with years ago that was just calling because of, quite literally, he reached out in an email years ago, and I quickly answered and replied and said, oh, here's what you need. Go do this, and it'll take care of what you're looking for. It was a question about, I don't know if it was a question about protocols or a question about sniffers or a question about protocol analysis or whatever it was. And I said, oh, yeah, I know exactly what will work. This would work. Years later, he just called out of the blue and said, I just got hired on this company. I want you to come be my systems engineer. I'm like, why are you calling me like years out of the blue, just out of nowhere, and talking to me about this? He goes, well, you sent me an email. I asked you in an email years ago about this. You sent it back right away, and you were spot on. And I thought, if I've got an opportunity to work with somebody who's this knowledgeable on this topic, I want to take advantage of that. So the first person I thought of for this job was you, because it was effectively a security position that combined protocol analysis with security to create this new world of security called next generation firewalls, which is now the current generation of firewalls. And so you never know when these things are going to happen. You just have to make the relationships, keep in touch with people. Do you have a LinkedIn? You should have a LinkedIn. And we can all fight about whether it's a good idea or not. But if you don't, I'll tell you it's a good idea, and anybody who thinks any different is wrong. But that's just me. I think having a well configured, well set up LinkedIn that associates you with only people you've worked with directly or that you know personally, and it's one where you post information about the things that you're working on. You built a home lab, put it on LinkedIn, because hiring managers are reading these things to tell if it's somebody they want to hire. And if you interview with a company, they're going to look at your LinkedIn, they're going to look at your Facebook, they're going to look at your Google Plus. I always bring that up because I think it matters. But make sure you have one, because it's a great place. People talk about this all the time. LinkedIn's just a way to tell people how great you are. Yes, that's right. You said that like it was a negative. That's exactly what it is. You need to tell people how great you are, because especially if you're working on a job. Now, once you get into your roles in a position in IT and you start meeting other people and you start maturing in your jobs you're taking, you start moving up in the industry, LinkedIn turns into a little bit of a different thing. Turns into a little bit more than just you touting your own horn. It gives you a chance to keep up with everybody else. And in fact, they have a chance to communicate with you to let you know, hey, I saw a job out here. I thought you'd be good for this. What do you think? It happens all the time. But bolts from the blue, I'm fine with bolts from the blue. I will be eternally grateful to this person who called me, who said, I want you to be my SE, because I was able to work for an amazing company doing amazing things and was amazingly successful. And it was really one of the highlights of my career working for other people. And if I had a chance, it's one of those where if I had a chance to do it all again, I'd absolutely do it all again. That's how much fun it was. So that's what you have to set yourself up for. Build those relationships. Use your LinkedIn to maintain those relationships. Keep track of where everybody happens to be. Keep track of what they're doing. Make sure you're familiar with what the industry is doing, what other people are working on. And you never know when you're just going to get an email from somebody years later saying, hey, I thought of you the other day. We're looking at hiring this person. I know that was a set of things you really liked. Is that something you'd be interested in? Send me your resume. You never know what's going to happen. Well, I think that's probably a good place to stop ourselves. Go work on your LinkedIn. There's your assignment for the month. Come report back next month in the study group. Tell me how that went. If you enjoyed this study group, we would love it if you give it a thumbs up. And if you are someone waiting for that 701 course, it will certainly be coming in November, but you'll miss it if you've not subscribed to our channel. You should go subscribe. It would be awesome. We're working on getting that number up. I would love to get 1 million subscribers here sometime in the next number of months. It's probably going to be next year. But we got to start somewhere, right? So if you like what you're seeing here, it would be great if you would do that. My friends at YouTube, my associates that I work with there, are always looking at our numbers. They're always talking to me about the numbers. They're always saying, are we doing the right thing for people on the channels, or something else we can do to help you? YouTube has been fantastic at supporting what we are doing here. And the reason they've been so supportive is because you've been so supportive with those thumbs up and with the subscriptions. There's really no other way to put it. You are the ones that are making this a success. And I thank you from me and everyone else here. We really appreciate what you've been doing for us and for the channel. Really quite remarkable what we've been able to build here, and we're not even close to being done. We got a lot more to do, and we're just going to keep doing it. We'll keep making the chips until you just keep eating them. So I'm more than happy to help you with that. Thank you so much for being here in the study group. Make sure you come back next month. We got a lot more to go through. All new questions every month. In the meantime, we'll see you over on our Discord at professormesser.com/Discord. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everybody.